You go ahead and say it now.
You in the grill pit, bitch.
One time, like this. For those who hop and make your one nigga straight loony after taking
who was accepted as a god in Europe long before the birth of Christ, accepted quite a few Africans as deities. Imhotep, this great African who was the world's first multi-genius.
This is Alfonso Chardy, prison lawyer. I want to welcome you to the Grill Pit. Thank you, doctor, for that introduction. I couldn't have said it any better myself. And let's talk Brittany Griner.
She said that it was unintentionally brought to Russia because she was in a hurry as she was packing.
Considering her personality and that she is a role model to many people, to many young people, she just thinks she should be responsible for her actions.
I was able to speak with Ms. Griner in the courtroom. She said that she is eating well, she is able to read books, and under the circumstances, she is doing well. I would like again to emphasize the commitment of the United States government at the very highest levels to bring home safely Ms. Griner and all U.S. citizens wrongfully detained.
So by pleading guilty, there is a better chance of leniency.
This is S.A. Moyer, prison lawyer, and I'm bringing this Brittany Griner case out so we can move from her case to violent crimes and gang violence, right? Because as disconnected as these subjects seem, they're very connected. So first, Brittany Griner's case popped up like on many news feeds, popped up on my feed, like I curious to what was going on, why is this happening? And then did a little bit of research, found out that she is a daughter of Raymond and Sandra Griner. Father was part of that Harris County police force or sheriffs out of Texas that always appear on these crime shows. He was a Marine. She's the oldest of 3 siblings. Interesting, right? The biggest interest was the fact that she played for Baylor. Baylor is a Baptist college, and you would think that they would be interested or have a statement, or other than a statement, maybe some political, maybe some action in her case. I mean, she's a famous athlete from their college, and on top of that, you know, she made some statements to, if she was LeBron James, she wouldn't be experiencing this. I would have said if she was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl, she wouldn't be experiencing that. But that's not the case, because Paul Whelan, if you followed his case about 3 years ago, he was convicted in Russia for espionage. Now his story is a little bit more complicated, and I don't have the facts. But as Brittany Griner came into the spotlight and she had the connection, you know, she was getting some momentum from the White House. It's a different White House, right? From 3 years ago. Her situation garnered some political momentum, received a letter from the president, her partner received a telephone call from the vice president. Paul Whelan's sister is like, okay, what's going on? She's talking now. What's going on with this? So then we initially heard that there was going to be a prisoner swap And I was like, oh, well, the reason she pled guilty for the crime is just going to be a prisoner swap and she's going to be home any minute now. That didn't happen. And you got to ask yourself, why? Why didn't that happen? Speculatively speaking, I would say a lot of it has to do with her identity. And that's just me saying, like whatever. Because you don't see the school or any ministers, nor do you see any politicians really challenging or, championing her cause. You see other athletes, though. You saw Stephen Curry, LeBron James even came out and said something about it. A couple other different people speak on her behalf. But recently you saw Robert Horry, or in the past, he's one of the athletes who spoke. And what brought me to this conversation was the fact that he talked about American freedoms, or the United States freedom, or to some extent to talking about freedom in regards to her case. The freedoms that Americans experienced over here differ than what experienced Russia. Okay, from the onset, I can just say to you, Mr. Robert Horry, Russia doesn't have as many people incarcerated as America has. We can just start with that. Or the complexity of what's going on with the violence being experienced by unarmed African-American males. With that, I'm not here to negotiate or discuss that or argue that particular point. I just wanted to draw some connections or some common understanding of what's really going on. Because the reason I brought this up, I thought this conversation was important because I looked and said, there's really no one really stepping up to this conversation and actually having it. It's not as politically motivated. You see the momentum, but you don't see people really making this like this is Russia doing what Russia does, and we need to, and Russia's supposed to be this anti-American, counter-American deal, but you don't see that same conversation being had when you have an American citizen, United States citizen over there in Russia. You don't, and like I said, y'all would expect them to be upset, hot. It's Russia. Russia's kidnapped one of our citizens. Even though we can say she committed a crime in Russia, it's still like there's no indignation is what I'm saying. It's like nobody's really upset except for people, her peers. All right, so with that being said, I'm trying to explain this so it makes sense to individuals who are listening. So you got Griner in Russia, committed a crime. There's really not a lot of political movement with it, as much as you would think. There's some, but not to the extent that you would expect it to be, right? And then the individuals who speak on her behalf are other athletes. All right, to the point where you have Robert Horry on his podcast, upset. He's going to go over there to him and his co-host is going to go over there and break her out. I would say, what happened to the SEAL 6 team, the one, I would expect them to be landing over there right now. I mean, if you watch the movies, I mean, that's what they do, right? They go, as I see things, that's not going to happen. The SEAL 6 team's not going over there, and they won't be bringing her back anytime soon. All right, with that being said, SSAF Money Prison Lawyer. So she's not coming back with SEAL 16. But again, I think she's got somebody better. She's got Dennis Rodman going over there. Going over there to try to get her back. And it's not, as much as it seems like it's a joke, the fact that he's concerned with it says a lot about him and his character, for whatever reason, for whatever purpose he's going over there for, whatever you can say about his home life or how he's been, he still has enough compassion to feel as though he wants to go over there and try to facilitate her coming back to the United States. It's great. I applaud him for that. The reason I bring this up and try to explain it and make some sense out of it is the complexity of the conversation. The first conversation we need to have is about the United States citizen, because a lot of these Negroes in this country feel as though they have this country is going to come to their aid. We see now in this situation, the only person you probably get is Dennis Rodman to come, and that's if you're an athlete. In the case that I'm getting at, 9 times out of 10, it would be somebody in your profession, you would hope, that would come and champion your situation for you. In the Young Thug case, Jeffrey Williams case, we find that you ask yourself your question, like, why aren't there anybody in he's an entertainer, a well-known entertainer. I'm sure if he was making some type of song, it'd be it involved country music or pop music or whatever they have now. It would be a big thing and coming together of minds. And you would think that business, that entertainment business would sort of get behind it. Not on this case, like not saying that perhaps she's not right because Russia has their laws, but just to say that coming together as a community, you would think that they would come, the music industry, entertainment industry would come together as a community. And you ask yourself the same question in this Brittany Garner case: why isn't the WNBA, NBA owners coming together to her defense, to help her? Even if the United States government finds no understanding of her situation, wants to stay out of it politically, which they haven't. I could argue that they haven't. They haven't, whatever. But the proof is that they did offer up an individual in a swap. It's news. But you can also look at, prior to all this, we had the kneeling down. We had the case with the quarterback, Colin Kaepernick situation. You had that. You had Trump and you had individuals not coming to the White House. So you have the sports black athletes in general being disrespected by politicians and being utilized specifically for their athletic ability, being treated like high-priced slaves. So you have that dynamic to the conversation. So as I look at her situation and individuals not really feeling like her conversation or this conversation is a mainstream conversation, and whatever happens to her makes me draw back and say, how does these individuals within this country who call themselves the Negroes in this country feel as though if something happens to them, this country has its back, and it's shown it doesn't have their back? But then we go back into Jeffrey Williams' situation, we talk about him and individuals not stepping up in his case, that being considerable, because his case is indicative in what they're attempting to do with all individuals, right? When it comes to just using these blanket laws to incarcerate individuals based on whatever they think is going on. We don't know, what actually all the facts of the case are, because they're the ones presenting the facts. And then the comparison between Russia and the United States, Robert Ory saying the freedoms that we have, yet and still there's no real connectivity or no connections between what's going on in Russia and what's going on in the United States. We're trying to make one seem better than the other, knowing that the United States statistically, with all this democratic government and this justice system, with the equality involved in the actual conversation when it comes to their justice system, has more people incarcerated in the world. And how does that even make sense, right? So what are you getting at? What point are you attempting to make? I'm trying to draw a comparison between the two, to let these Negroes know in this country that you really don't have any support whatsoever. And the fact of the matter is, we can use this Jeffrey Williams case, or we can use this Brittany Garner's case to understand what this country thinks of you. or what they're willing to do for you, or what the lengths they're willing to go to incarcerate you or divide us, or whatever it might be. Here nor there, because I'm not trying to. I just want to bring out the point that we see that the Baptist Church, Baylor, they haven't come out. They wrote a statement. They really haven't come out in full force. You really don't see them being advocates in this situation for somebody who went to their school. We don't see any politicians really advocating. I mean, really advocating. I don't mean whatever's happening behind doors. I mean, really saying this is an indignation, the fact that this has happened to one of our citizens. We don't see that verbiage. My curiosity is to Brittany Griner in general. You know, the reason I don't have it's not a disdain, but I don't really talk about these individuals because prior to this instance, what was her understanding of criminal justice? Probably nothing. When she comes back into the society, which she will be coming back to the United States, what would be her advocacy when it comes to criminal justice? I would speculate none whatsoever, right? How would she feel about the United States when she comes back to the States? I'm not sure how she's going to feel, how they're going to try to control her narrative. But we know right now the comparisons. If there's trying to be a comparison with criminal and justice system, to me they both sit on the same plateau, you know. And that brings me to my conversation about violent crimes, because it's been a conversation specifically nationwide, but it's slowly becoming a conversation in this state of Minnesota. Violent crimes, and everybody's making they're putting in an effort to reduce violent crimes. But why is that violent crime conversation so important in relation to Brittany Griner, and then from Griner to Jeffrey Williams, and from Jeffrey Williams to the state of Minnesota? International, national, regional. The one thing I did see, just backdrop one thing about this Jeffrey Williams case, they did have something in the news feed about him and that Sergio dude or whoever they want to. They were on live camera. They were live being recorded while they were in court, and they were doing a little bit of communications. But at that particular point, the people in the courtroom, whether they were lawyers or clerks or whatever, informed them a couple of times that they were being recorded. That it's not so much they were being recorded, but the fact of the matter is that their mics weren't muted, and they were being recorded. Unbeknownst to them, they were being recorded. At that particular time, see, when I was going through court, when you don't want to say anything that can jeopardize your case. So I never said anything, even though I knew the court case was fucked up, had run aground. I didn't think I was going to lose, and I'm sure at this particular point, these individuals don't think they're going to lose because they feel like the lawyers whole time that you're going through the process have individuals believing that they won't lose, or worst case scenario is that you won't do any prison time. This is the verbiage they give you. So I'm sure they're thinking the whole time, like, I'm not going to go to jail. I'm going to beat this. I'm just going to sit this down. It's only a minute, blah, 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 until you actually hear that guilty verdict. And then it doesn't set in that particular moment. Eventually it does set in when your ass make it up to your pod and you think about all that goddamn time you got to do. And then a moment like being recorded or not having your mics muted, you really should have said something. You really should be telling the world what's going on, because you're not going to get a second chance, right? Because that's how the court process is set up. At the end of the day, they're going to say that the record is sealed. The record at any time, at the particular point, you never objected. Here's the opportunity for individuals who have the world's attention to talk about that they're actually experiencing and what's going on and how they feel about what's going on, opposed to, because after you get sentenced, everybody's going to be like, it's because he got sentenced is the reason why he's talking. No, the reason most people feel as though, or they're being told by their lawyers, is that keep your mouth shut, let me work for you, I'm going to get you off. So you don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. So because you feel like you're gonna get out, and this is how the system works. And I know it seems like I'm digressing from the whole Brittany Griner, but I'm not, because the problem is that you have individuals who are going through these criminal injustice systems who are trying to get themselves off, but yet and still this is the opportunity that they have the floor going on and how they feel about what's going on, opposed to, because after you get sentenced, everybody's going to be like, it's because he got sentenced is the reason why he's talking. No, the reason most people feel as though, or they're being told by their lawyers, is that keep your mouth shut, let me work for you, I'm going to get you off. So you don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. So because you feel like you're gonna get out, and this is how the system works. And I know it seems like I'm digressing from the whole Brittany Griner, but I'm not, because the problem is that you have individuals who are going through these criminal injustice systems who are trying to get themselves off, but yet and still this is the opportunity that they have the floor, and they should be speaking, because afterwards they're going to try to explain the situation, or if she's convicted now, she's trying to come home, 2.5 years, 3 years from now, she's going to still out of public ear. I doubt it. So I'm saying the same way with this Jeffrey Williams. Later on down the line, is anybody going to really be listening to him explain to them what was going on and why he never made a big deal about it? I don't know. Let's get to this violent crime and gang violence scenario, and let's try to connect all the dots, starting with Brittany Griner, her situation, Russia, Jeffrey Williams, his situation, America, this RICO situation, the black situation in America, that connection, and now this what they call an uptick in crime. And why is this so important? Why is it so important for them to continue this villainization of these individuals of color, and how they have individuals who I feel as though molds within our community who speaks to this system, this United States, this system that they find themselves connected to, and believe that they have the best interest in mind for black folks. Same way the house Negro had his position, that master was the best master of them all. They're telling us this, and but why is it so critical right now? Why is this playing itself out on an international scale, national scale, and regional scale? Take a look at this.
Crackdown that began in spring.
This morning, federal, state, and local law enforcement joined U.S. Attorney Andrew Lugar to talk about arrests and what they've learned. John Lordson shows us what's being done and what's left to do.
I want the people of Minnesota to know what we know about the violence afflicting our state.
Calling the violent crime statistics alarming, U.S. Attorney Andrew Lugar says over the past few months, they've learned a lot about changes in criminal behavior.
By their actions, their weapons, and their words, violent offenders are displaying an absolute disdain for the law.
Lugar says law enforcement has encountered criminals with more militaristic and deadly weapons, Glock 19s equipped with switches that turn the handguns into automatic machine guns. Body armor and laser scopes have also been recovered.
What used to be knives are now guns. What used to be guns are now machine guns.
The multi-agency crime crackdown has focused on carjackings, illegal possession of firearms, and drug trafficking. Leaders say they've made hundreds of arrests and recovered thousands of fentanyl pills.
Although we have made significant progress against violent crime, there is still more work to be done.
Those that will commit crimes against the communities in which we serve will not escape justice.
Interim Minneapolis Police Chief Amelia Huffman says community members in her city appreciate the crackdown and hope it continues.
We have been hearing from folks in.
Now, this is important because at the end of the day, these corrupt police officers utilize black folks, and they got these Negroes who go to them or talks to them, and what they want to hear from them is thank you for incarcerating our individuals. These individuals is causing crime, because they believe, or they've been told, that these individuals are that. Remember, I told you, I had a conversation about old Charleston White drama. All these people who feel like there's something going on that's more important to them than criminal justice itself. This is important because all throughout criminal injustice, we've had these Negroes go up to law enforcement and tell them that. Later on down the line, we find out 100 to 1 that these Negroes who went and said that eventually, or for whatever reason, didn't know, being told the wrong information. I understand being upset that your community is being taken over. Also understand that a lot of that taking over is in some situations we find that the individuals who are perpetrating the crimes aren't the individuals who are being arrested. They're arresting the wrong individuals purposefully. When it comes to this situation with these guns, rap music, you find a lot of that interchangeability where they say something in the rap music, all of a sudden these fools are running around with it because of the music, and the music didn't make them do it. It's what I'm getting at. It's the fact of the matter that these things do exist in this community and where they're coming from. I guarantee the dude who's walking around with that switch on his gun didn't put it on there. He probably doesn't even understand how a gun operates, but he's got that in his community and he's purchasing it and it's being sold to him. Ask yourself a question: who's selling that item to them and where's it coming from? See, the police know where that item came from and who sold it to them. 9 times out of 10, it's them who are selling it, or some fraction or some faculty of them, but we're not going to even get into that. That's a whole nother episode. What we're getting into is the fact of the matter is this talk about violent crime and gang activity. And we started with Brittany Griner. We went to Jeffrey Williams, who's known as Young Thug, and his little RICO Act deal. And you can see that first and foremost, the Brittany Griner situation is important because Negroes in this country want you to believe that somehow this country has your back. And we can see in this Griner case, it doesn't. They're not sending the SEAL 6 team over there. They're sending Dennis Rodman over there. I don't know what the fuck he bringing. And not the same thing about him. It's just like, you would think that it would be more indignation from political figures and people because she went to a college, but it has a lot to do with her color. It has a lot to do with her sexual orientation and identity. I feel that that's me. That's my opinion. That's SF Mo, your prison lawyer, saying that. And that's just where I'm seeing where this is coming from, because it's not taking over the same momentum. If her name was Amber Emerson, Amber, Jessica, Ashley, she probably would get a little bit more. And it wouldn't even really matter what she'd done. We still have that indignation, right? But now we went from Jeffrey Williams to, we ask yourself a question: why isn't his situation, not the fact whatever he did, we're not trying to adjudicate or see all this fictitious information they're coming up with, because that's the facts, right? It's conversation. Whoever can make this this narrative happen, because only person was there and knows what's going on, the people being charged. And usually it's not their conversation that's on the record. It's the individuals. And I talked about that. Him to Minnesota saying that this violent crime, gang activity, we got it under control. Why is all this important? Let's just finish up this video. This line ass.
In the community that they would like to see even more focused enforcement details.
Lugar says he's talked with gang members who've been arrested, who have urged him to change the rhetoric that crime doesn't have penalties. He believes that mindset is a major reason for the spike in violent crime.
Fentanyl and a machine gun can equal 30 years in prison.
In Minneapolis, John Lordson, WCCO.
So this is crucial. This is crucial. That conversation, what he just said, is crucial, because that's it. That's they just put it out there. They're telling you exactly what time it is, and it's not that like individuals don't realize that this what they're doing it doesn't equate to time. People know that. They just feel as though that there's a lot of momentous around what's going on. And again, I go back to the gun with the switch on it. The guy who's shooting it, ask him where he got it from. He don't even know, where that gun came from. He just knows it's in his community and he's utilizing it for whatever reason. And all of a sudden it's there. And you ask yourself the question, why it's there? And here's the thicker things. Here we go now. So back in when Trump was president, whatever you want to call it, they had what they called iron fist. Here's the connection between the guns and the gangs and things on the street and iron fist. Iron fist was what they were utilizing to wage war against domestic terrorists who came out to be black identity extremists. It's a term that they made up, and it was important for them to make this term up in order for them to categorize these individuals. So they're not gangs, they're black identity extremists, not racist, extremists. So they launched the FBI launched what they called Iron Fist to mitigate the threat. And they were drawing a connectivity between oppositions to racism and violence against law enforcement. So black folks who stood up for themselves, were sick of police violence, were then labeled black identity extremists, and then these individuals were put on a list. And this list, this is really important, because this list set these individuals, once they gave them this identity, higher than Al-Qaeda, higher than Hezbollah, higher than any terrorist group out that you would think of, but specifically because they were defending themselves against police violence. So, and this was priority. This was priority under Trump. This FBI, this thing came out, because remember, he was talking about liberal extremism or whatever he called it. And so here it comes. And it makes sense when you look at things like that, because words are very important. It's very important for you to identify Brittany Garner, how she identifies herself, how they identify these individuals, because identity, when you start identifying people as certain things, it gives you the opportunity to separate and segregate and exclude and include, right? Just black identity extremism, very important to name is, because that's how you start to take individuals, make them criminalize them, have black people within that community say they are the problem, and in turn remove them from society and place them into what? A concentration camp. They were able to, and as wild as a concentration camp sounds, in this 2020, I was in the 80s, they had actually constructed something. They had documented, or they had put together a plan of placing individuals into concentration camps, blacks, into concentration camps, and it was called Rex 84. And I'm sure a lot of people are unfamiliar with that, but it was during Olive Wood North time under President Reagan. They created Rex 84. It was an executive order 1149, 490. I said 11490 was an executive order that had allowed the president the executive power to create this. This is when Richard Nixon, but this program was set up for dissension. Those individuals who were at the time against the Vietnam War. That was the executive program that's initiated it, and we find Ronald Reagan utilizing it with him and Oliver North, this Rex 84. So why is Rex 84 so important, and why is this Iron Fist so important, and why is a label individuals black extremists so important, and why is it necessary for us to continue to have individuals like Young Thug and them be committed, get charged with RICO and get thrown in prison? Why is Minnesota continuing to utilize violent crime and gang activity as a reason for them to go into these communities and incarcerate individuals or send them to prison? But when they are the initial, if you trace the money and the dope and the guns that's being utilized in these communities, it's coming from them. Some fraction or form of their law enforcement is bringing those items back into the community. The dope, the guns, all that. So this is very important information, and we have to be cognizant of what's going on, because they don't want you to be aware of what's going on. They don't want to make the connections between all these things. So I started off with the Brittany Garner situation being a connection, a connectivity point, and went all the way back to concentration camps and using Rex 84 as ultimately being the situation they want to put individuals into that they call dissidents for whatever reason. Yet and still all in the middle, they have Negroes that's complicit with the situation. The same way when the Jews were getting carted off into concentration camps, you had a council. Council never thought they were going to be carted off until they were carted off. So you're going to always have a conversation with a Negro that's part of the system who's claiming, why are you doing it to the system? We're trying to help your community. And they truly don't understand the end game, right? What's going to happen at the end of the day. There's not enough room on this spaceship. There's not enough room in these bunkers. There's not enough room to have your black ass come along with them. So you're gonna get left with the rest of them, you and your family members. So what is this getting at? It's awareness. It's awareness, and it's not something that's new. It's not something that I'm making up. It's not something that people don't know about. They don't want to remember it because it's been because they added some sugar to some shit, and people want to forget. I'm not saying I'm your prison lawyer. I told you before, I don't dance, I don't sing, I don't rap, I don't tell jokes. I'm here to give it to you raw. And most of the stuff I'm just reading. I'm reading from it. I really don't want to just come off verbatim because I don't want to mislead the individuals by saying something that's not correct. So I'm trying to stay as much to script as I possibly can and bring this to you and try to connect the dots. Why isn't Brittany Garner case, why isn't she being defended? They're not going to defend her. She's not going to be defended. She's only once she's forgotten about, she's going to be forgotten about. Paul Whalen's been sitting over there for the longest. He might have to do him 16. I don't know what to tell you. She might have to do the 9. Get pretty close to it. You know what I'm saying? Especially if the administration shifts and you don't get that individual in there that's going to be pro her or sympathetic to her cause because of her identity. Identity goes a long way. Whereas Jeffrey Williams can tell you that, because just because his identity was Young Thug and he's saying about these things, he's being convicted and placed in prison. But we're not going after those individuals who put those switches on the guns or bring the dope into the nation. We're saying these individuals are the problems and we're trying to get rid of them, only to set up these concentration camps, what they call prisons or concentration camps, because at the time of Rex 84, they had divided up the country and had individuals, areas where they were slotted to put individuals who they call dissidents. So this is not something that's new. It's not something that's outlandish. It's not something that's coming up. This is just stuff that they're willing to tell you about that you probably don't want to know about. But SFMO told you he was going to give it to you raw. He's going to give it to you at all. So I got to give it to you. But just before those individuals who don't believe or think that I'm making something up, this is a piece that I'm gonna play from back in the days, a long time ago. Play this piece, and it's just so funny how the rhetoric hasn't changed, but yet still people want to talk about progress. Let's do this.
And I said there's too many.
No. Well, how about the fellow that is arming himself towards the police? No one seems to mention here that these black militant civil rights groups are arming themselves today with...
I don't even know how that terminology is sponsored. These are black, liberal, civil rights. I don't know. I can tell he hasn't been to school at all because those terms don't even fit together, but let him tell it.
Automatic weapons. They have shotguns. They are building stockpiles of Molotov cocktails. They have all other assorted homemade weapons that they have made, all to direct at the police. They have one idea: kill Whitey, kill the white devil, kill the police.
Patrolman Kowaleski, let me ask you this. As you know, members of the National Rifle Association are not only encouraged to have weapons of various kinds, but it's made easy for them to get weapons under the auspices of the federal government. Would you say that they should be treated in a different way than black citizens in terms of access to weapons?
I don't see the connection between the National Rifle Association, of which I am a member and in which I say is a highly respected organization. If people got weapons from the Rifle Association, they did it under false colors. They falsified records. They falsified government records. And if I am not mistaken, if this can be proven, these people can be prosecuted for falsifying these records, in which they should. What is their purpose and their object and their reason for getting these automatic weapons? Because the police are getting them? They want them to use against us.
Do you have any place
Mr. Kirby can tell you about police arming them, people
Mr.
arming
Morgan,
themselves.
I wonder whether I might ask Mr. Kowaleski
Of course. Chime right in. This is Professor Reese wants to ask you a question, Patrolman Kowaleski. Can you hear him?
Yes, sir.
I wonder why you think the people in Newark would want to arm against you.
Why would they want to arm against me?
Yes.
I can give you a very good reason. If this TV camera can pick this up, here it is. Get the devil. Get the white devil. Get the man that represents the white power structure. Here's another article. The Wops want race war. Kill the white racist policeman. Numerous other things here, if you want me to mention them, will say here. Now we've got to get these four-legged and two-legged beasts. We know none of them, the brothers and sisters, are going to stand for this dog business.
Well, what's the motive behind this sort of? What's the motive behind this sort of propaganda, Mr. Kowaleski?
I'll tell you what it is: to stir up the hostility between the police and the members of the minority group. You saw two perfect examples here tonight of why there is hostility toward the police. Just take one good long look at Reverend Clee when he says that we are the enemy, that we are the invader. And this is the man that says here that white policemen are the ones who are enforcing the laws for the white power structure. What is Reverend Clee going to do when he gets... What's Reverend Clee going to do?
Mr. Kowaleski, let me ask you a question.
Black power...
I'd like to know from Mr. Kowaleski, number one, if he knows of any case in the black community where there are automatic weapons.
Do I know of any case?
Yes.
Wasn't it recently that we just rounded up 15 people in the city of Newark for an arsenal of automatic weapons?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so?
No, I don't believe so.
Why don't you read the Newark Evening News?
I do. I read it very closely.
When you're in there, Mr. Kervin.
I read it very closely.
Mr. Kervin, I'd like to also ask you
I'd like to also ask
if I gave you this file here that's filled with hundreds of people that have been locked up for carrying guns recently.
I'd like to ask you another question, Mr. Kowalewski.
Right.
Do you believe that there has ever been a case of police brutality against a black citizen in the city of Newark?
Now, that all depends on what you consider to be police brutality. I'm going to answer your
physical abuse of a citizen in the city. Physical abuse in the city.
Now, listen, if I was to say that...
Do you believe that there has ever been a case? Let me tell you one little story. Let me tell you one little story. Let me tell you one little story, Mr. Kowalewski. There was a woman by the name of Ida Brown. She was arrested by 2 police officers and charged with assaulting them.
In Newark?
In Newark. She was Negro. She was brought to trial. In a conversation during the trial, a prosecutor heard these police officers talk about how they had rigged this story against this woman. He removed himself from the case and took the witness stand himself and testified as to what he had heard. The case was dismissed. The interesting thing is that these 2 police officers have still to today not had charges brought against them for perjury or either departmental charges.
So I go back to say why things, as much as things have changed, as much as they've stayed the same, right? It's just a big lie. And with my last, if you watch my Justin episode, I talked about how important these individuals within our community are and what's going on in our community in general is important because you have so many individuals who are not worried about this. They don't want to watch this and have nothing to do with it. So you don't really have to hide anything. So when the federal government comes out and they push Iron Fist, it sounds like a karate movie, Iron Fist. So they push Iron Fist and they say it's as a counterterrorism, counterintelligence, and cyber. This is what it's for. It's against black identity extremists, and they start locking up individuals. And you ask yourself, how is this even possible? What's really going on? And you don't understand that the reason they know this stuff is in the community is because they supplied the community with it. And the question that the gentleman should have asked the police officer is, where are all these guns coming from? Where are they coming from? Where are they coming? Where are these assault rifles coming from? You understand? And I know this is the 1970s, and it's pretty early on, and the conversation hasn't developed to that questioning. But it's the same question we asked today. But we get all these individuals on stage, and they talk about all this situation, these scare tactics they use in order to push in order for them to convict Jeffrey Williams, in order for them to allow something like Brittany Garner to remain in another country, with a country that you're supposed to be at odds with, a country that is supposed to be draconian, yet still they don't have the same numbers you have when it comes to criminal injustice, and it's just crazy. This is SAF mode. I mean, I'm just trying to bring you as much information as I possibly can so you can make a decision. I'm not feeding it to you. I'm not feeding it to you. I'm just bringing you to the well. I'm just bringing you to the plate. Eat as much as you feel. Say boycott Target. Let's continue our boycott on Target. You understand me? Let's continue our boycott on Target. Let's boycott Target. You know what I'm saying? Anywhere but Target. Because the reason why this is so important is because at the end of the day, Target is part and partial to this conversation. As far away as they want to place themselves, they believe in this. And they believe in these organizations. And organizations, what do you mean? I mean things like Iron Fist. I mean things like Rex 84. Because at the end of the day, even though it's not Rex 84 anymore, you're still utilizing those same tactics to send individuals to prison. You're still using surveillance technology to identify certain individuals because I go right back to identity. Who are you? Who are you? Because that's going to entail whether or not you come with us, whether you are with us. And that's the reason why they don't want to have Brittany Garner. That's why they're not advocating for her, defending her, because who she is or who she identifies with. And it's not, okay, I'm not, and don't construe my words. When I say, and I'm going to explain myself, because when I say not helping her, they are helping her, but her help looks different. It's look, if you had a low, medium, high, the shit's on low, right? It's on super low, right? The same way I said about the white girl who killed the black male in Florida, the Instagram model, it's on low, right? When it comes to situations, and you start looking into the complexity of these individuals, then you start seeing why it's on low, right? And that's the reason why people don't want to watch I Got Something to Say. But I've told you many times, we don't need no million people watching us. We just need you following us, subscribing, supporting us. It's SAF mode. You know I keep my man Ron B in the middle that does a lot and it does a lot and a little, because that's what the middle does. And I'm just trying to bring it to you raw, because that's the only way I can bring it to you. You understand me? We got way more interesting things coming up dealing with subject matter, not bullshit or BS or clout chasing or whatever they want to call it. Real substantive information we're going to bring you. We just want y'all to support us. Check us out about the work release program that they're not abiding by. None of these things, the interest, the con game, these fakers and con artists wanting you to believe in the system and somehow it works and somehow they're getting the right individual. If they got the right individual and they incarcerate him, it was by accident, because a lot of the crime that's going on in the community, and it's documented to this, is not the community that's causing the crime, not at the levels that they want you to believe it. Believe me, there's some individuals who are ignorant, who are retarded, that's doing some dumbass shit. But if you calculate it and you actually take those people out of the community, which the criminal justice system works for them, they go in, they come out, they go in, they come out, say no, they retarded. But the actual crime that's being caused, or the contributors to that crime, aren't the individuals in that community, aren't the individuals in the community. And who are they? And where do they live? And why are they doing it? And what purpose does it serve? Ask yourself those questions and get back to me. And I'm out of here. This is SAF Mo, your prison lawyer. And I'm going to give it to you raw. Remember, don't sing, don't dance, don't tell jokes. Don't do none of that shit for you. But I'm going to give it to you raw.
Our distinguished eyes to receive our distinguished guest. He is more than a scholar, he's more than a lecturer, he's more than an activist. He is a legend, a living legend amongst our people. He is one of the elders of the African community. He has given his life to study as well as teaching our people about their great past and the prospects for an even greater future. He is a man whose presentation of history is penetrating and powerful, and he has a way of bringing history alive. And I think that those of you that have heard him before, and those of you that are going to hear him tonight, know that there's no one that is quite able to put history or describe it in quite the way that our lecturer tonight does. It is with great pride and pleasure that I present to you, and I also ask that you receive with as warm a reception as you can receive,